Hello and welcome to my channel. This is Danielle here, and today's video I am going to talk about why is online education and online classes, why are they so popular in East Asia? So to give a little bit of background about me, my name is Danielle. I'm from the US, but since 2014 I have been teaching English to kids, mostly kids, in East Asia. I spent 1 year living in Seoul, South Korea, and teaching at a public school there and doing some volunteer teaching in my free time. And then I went traveling for a bit, and then after that I started to teach online. Didn't expect to be teaching online for so long. It's been 4.5 years, and it's been actually a really nice job to do, either full-time or part-time. Really, I make up my own hours so I can make it what I want. And the kids who I teach now are by and large in China. So between South Korea and China, I have a lot of experience understanding what education is like in East Asia. I also lived in Thailand for a couple of years, so I have an idea of what some of the attitudes in Southeast Asia are as well. So in today's video, I want to talk about why online education is so popular and prevalent in East Asia. So I think it really comes down to two main things. They would be, it's a huge time saver for people to take classes online, and two, it's often a much better learning experience for the student. Okay, so before I get into the specifics of online learning, there's some background info that would be really useful to know. And that is that anybody with the means, in other words, the money, in East Asia is absolutely going to invest in extra education for their children and for themselves if they're adults. There is such a huge value placed on learning and education in East Asia. I can get into that in another video, but they just have this rich tradition of valuing education, spending a lot of time learning and studying. They really highly value and respect great teachers and great schools. It's something that pretty much everybody pursues, and you want to find the best teachers you can get and get into the best schools you can get into, because there is a belief that this is how you will succeed in life. So a family will absolutely invest whatever they can into their child's education. They will go to their school during the day like we do in the West, but that's only part of the learning process. Much of the hard work gets done in extra schooling that happens outside of the Monday through Friday day at school. So parents will heavily invest in what's called like an academy, so to speak. And that academy will hold classes in the evenings and on the weekends. So most kids are going to have school, say, from like 8 a.m. to 3 p.m. during the day. And then after that, they're going to have extra activities and classes outside of school. So those typically include English lessons, math lessons, some kind of musical instrument like piano or violin. Maybe they're involved in a sport or some kind of physical thing like dance, or like a martial arts. And then other kids, depending on their interests and what the family can afford, might be taking extra art classes. They might take something like robotics. They will absolutely be taking any test prep course for any kind of placement exam to get into, say, a certain school. They will absolutely spend money on that. So these kids are pretty loaded with classes. I have some students who actually tell me when they are off from their regular school, say public school, they're busier. So during summer vacation, for example, it's not really a vacation because they have so many extra classes that they're going to during, say, off season to get ready for regular school, and to get ahead really of the other students, that they're going to be taking a lot of courses. So when you think about the volume of classes that they're taking, it's much easier to turn to an online experience. So the first thing I want to talk about is commute time. So if you think about just the size of the cities where a lot of these kids live. So I've just like outlined population sizes of the tier 1 cities in China. Tier 1 are the 4 biggest cities in China population wise. They're also considered the most cosmopolitan, the most developed or advanced of the cities. So those cities are Shenzhen, Guangzhou, Shanghai, and Beijing. So Shenzhen is a city just across from Hong Kong. So it's this big city. You can see it from Hong Kong, actually. And that population size is 12.4 million people. Then the next one would be Guangzhou. That's 13.3 million people. Then you have Beijing at 20.5 million people and Shanghai at 24.3 million people. As a comparison, New York City has 8.3 million people. London has 9.3 million people. A city like Los Angeles, only 4 million people. Berlin, 3.6 million people. So if you compare these really big cities in the West to big cities in East Asia, there's like no comparison, because the biggest city in Europe is still smaller than the smallest tier 1 city in China. A tier 1, say like new tier 1 city, which is like, I guess like a slight run less, you're still gonna have maybe like 8 million people in that city, you know, even maybe 16 million people in that city. So can you imagine trying to get your kid to basketball practice in a city of 16 million people? Can you imagine trying to drive the car in the traffic in that city? Or like squeezing into the subway car in that city? And I'm just naming the Chinese cities, you know, like Seoul's population is 9.7 million people, still bigger than New York and London. Tokyo, their population is 13.9 million in the city proper and 37.4 million in the greater Tokyo area. So I mean, it's just so... there are just so many people. It is so densely populated. It is very complicated and time consuming to get from point A to point B. So if you think about it, like, you know, a good commute to your English class could be 30 minutes each way. So it's 30 minutes that you and your kid have to spend to get to that class. And then the kid is in the class maybe for an hour. And then the parent has to just hang out there for an hour. And then there's another half-hour commute back. So that would be probably a pretty short commute for just one class. And let's say that class meets 3 times a week. That's 3 hours a week that the kid is spending just commuting to English class, and that the parent is spending even more time than that because they have to sit there and wait. You know, it's like, actually, if it's 1 hour spent commuting, it's then 1 hour spent sitting there. The parent then has 6 hours or 9 hours a week, you know, that they're spending on this. Imagine if you can then change that class to be at home. You've now saved the kid 3 hours a week in commute time, and you've saved the parent 9 hours a week in commute time and wait time. There's just so much more you can do in that time that you get back. So it just makes sense that if you could save that time, you would save the time, you know. And then what happens with that extra time, from things that I've read and how I've talked to the students and the families I teach, often they will sign up the kid for even more classes, so, instead of just sitting in the car, like passed out, that kid might be taking another class in that time. Yeah. Or, in some cases they might be able to play a little bit, and that would be really good for them, as opposed to just sitting on a train or in the backseat of a car. The other thing that I want to talk about why online education makes so much sense for them is it's a much better learning experience. So in East Asia, because the population of these areas is just so big, you often have a really bad ratio. It's like student teacher ratio. So like in a typical classroom in the US, you might have 20 to 25 kids for one teacher. In China, it's very common you're going to have 40 to 50 kids for one teacher. And there's just no good way for that one teacher to adequately get to everyone in the room. That's also part of why, you want to seek extra learning experiences, to give your kid every chance possible to learn. And even when you're paying for these extra classes, it's still common you're going to have 20 kids for one teacher. And then usually the more expensive schools will have a better student-teacher ratio. So the parents might be spending a significant amount of money for these extra classes. So the student-teacher ratio can be like 10 students for one teacher or 5 students for one teacher. And then, of course, like the most elite would be private tutoring. So, you're going to go commute for a half an hour to an hour for your kid to sit in a room with a teacher who has like at least 15 other kids to pay attention to. How much is your kid going to really get out of that? I would say it's not for nothing. They'll get something out of it. But if you can have an online class where your child is one of 5 kids or one of 3 kids or has a one-on-one experience, that is so much better for their learning. They get so much individual attention, and it's likely to help them grow much faster and develop much faster. The other thing is that if you think about the number of native English speakers in the world compared to the number of people who live in these countries, like you've got over 1 billion people in China alone, there's never going to be enough native speakers living in those countries to accommodate the demand to learn the language from those teachers. Similarly, as the kid gets more advanced in subjects like, say, calculus or like biology or chemistry, something like that, you're going to need a much more like sophisticated, well-educated, well-trained, more experienced teacher to help that student. And then the numbers just thin out, especially when you have to rely solely on who is in your physical area. So if you're in like a tier 2 city, it's not likely to attract high talent the same way a tier 1 like Beijing or Shanghai would. So then you're going to feel like, as a parent, how can my kid get ahead in this city when we don't get the best of the best coming here? But if you turn to online, you literally have a world of options available to you. So if you're thinking about English education and wanting your child to learn from native speakers, you literally have anybody who's willing to be awake at the time you want the class and available to teach, as an option for you. And so you don't have to rely on who happens to be in your relatively small city for East Asia, but very large city by Western standards. You don't have to rely on who's physically around. The world is your oyster at that point. And this is a huge value to the parents there, because it's not just the time spent sitting down with the books and reading and doing the activities and the exercises they highly, highly, highly value an excellent teacher. When they find a teacher they think is excellent, they are going to commit to you. They don't want to waste their time and money on anybody else. Like, they will stick to you. So this is, you become, as a teacher, an invaluable resource to their child's development. So they will take the time and they will do lots of research and try out lots of different people, lots of different programs, looking for whoever they think is the best fit and who's going to get their kid to the level they expect. So online options just give them just literally a world of options to choose from, and they are, even though they might be overwhelmed by the amount of options available, it gives them a chance to find somebody they truly feel confident has what it takes. So these are my thoughts from my experiences teaching students in East Asia since 2014. So it's been like 6.5 years I've been doing it. I'm sure there's even more to uncover about this, but this is, to me, like the nuts and bolts basics of why online education makes so much sense for them. And if you think in these terms, even if you don't live there, you live in a place, say you live in like a small city in America like Cleveland, and you want to get your kids some excellent teachers, you don't have to rely on just who's available in Cleveland. You can find great teachers anywhere on the planet. So it's a really cool opportunity for everyone. It's just that I think in East Asia they were much quicker to jump into this because of the necessity and the demand for excellent teaching. And they've really carved out, because there's so many people using their platforms, they've really figured out like how the thing needs to be set up, and we can benefit from that to make it work for us too. So I hope this was interesting for you guys and informative. I've certainly had fun observing this and learning about it as I've lived the experience. Please leave me a comment if you have any questions or thoughts or extra insights into this topic. I'd be really curious to hear. You can hit the like button if you found this interesting and informative, and always you can subscribe to the channel if you would like to get more videos like this. Okay, thanks very much for watching. I'll see you. Bye.